Hello, today I'll be talking about my top 10 favorite rock/metal albums from the year 2001. There are definitely many albums to choose from. I think you got a lot of great albums in the world of rock and metal when it came to the year 2001. But some bands that didn't quite make my list but were somewhat close are Sum 41, Blink 182, Fear Factory, Creator, and of course many others. But yeah, let's go ahead and move into my top 10. This will be in no particular order, since that for me personally a bit tough. But the first album I do want to talk about is from the band 311 with their album From Chaos. So yeah, to me, one of the band's best and probably my favorite when it comes to their 2000s work. Evolver is also really good too from them, which would be the album that would come out after this one, but From Chaos still definitely a really great album. Of course, it has one of their biggest singles, that song, of course, being Amber, but I think the other singles off this album are also pretty good. You Wouldn't Believe, I'll Be Here a While. But I think the album also has some really good deep cuts, like Champagne and Uncalm. But you also get some solid chemistry between Nick and Essay, of course, such as in songs like Wake Your Mind Up and Uncalm. But yeah, all around, definitely another really good album from 311. Moving on, we'll be moving to maybe the heaviest album on this list. We got Arch Enemy with Wages of Sin. Moving into melodic death metal, and this is definitely my favorite Arch Enemy album. Anthems of Rebellion might come close, probably in close second, but this album has always been my favorite from the band. And this would be the introduction of Angela, and she's still my favorite when it comes to the Arch Enemy vocalists. Of course, I do also like Elisa. And when it comes to Johan, I only like one of the three albums that they did with him. I like Burning Bridges, but I'm not too big on Stigmata and the album before that one. I like a few songs from both of those albums, but overall, not too big on those albums. But Burning Bridges, though, pretty good album. But Wages of Sin, definitely still peak Arch Enemy to me. I mean, you have some of their best songs on here, like Ravenous and Savage Messiah, and the album opener Enemy Within, which is definitely one of the band's best album openers in my opinion. You have other really good songs like Burning Angel and Web of Lies, but all around, really killer album from Arch Enemy, and definitely my favorite again. And now we're moving to something a bit more melodic. We're moving to Incubus with Morning View, which at this point is probably one of my favorite albums of all time. And also this would unfortunately be their final album with Dirk on bass. But some of my favorites on here, Nice to Know You, which is probably a top 5 Incubus song for me. Wish You Were Here, of course, which is another big song for them. I also really enjoy Just a Phase, 11 a.m., which is probably maybe top 10, top 15 Incubus song for me. I also do really like Are You In and Blood on the Ground. I do like the more heavier moments on the album, like Circles and Blood on the Ground. But you do also get a solid vocal performance from Brandon Boyd, of course, such as in songs like Echo and Warning, and of course many others. But all around, really good stuff. Definitely one of the band's best. But now we're moving to some new metal with POD Satellite, which is their most commercially successful album, definitely their biggest album. You have some of their biggest songs on here. Of course, the obvious one being Youth of the Nation, but the other singles off the album are also pretty good, like Alive and Boom. But I think the title track Satellite is one of their most underrated singles. I really like that song a lot, and probably a top 10 POD song for me personally, to be honest. I really like the title track a lot. But yeah, of course, I do like the heavier side of the album, like the songs like Set It Off and Portrait, but I do like the more melodic side too, like Ghetto and Thinking About Forever, or even when they go to the more reggae side of their sound, like Ridiculous. Yeah, all around, really good stuff, and definitely one of the band's best. Fundamental Elements of Southtown nowadays is my favorite from POD, but Satellite would of course be in close second. But moving on to the next album, we'll be going to Rammstein with Mutter. Forgive me if I butchered the pronunciation, but this is my favorite Rammstein album. I think the album definitely starts really strong with those first 5 songs. I mean, Mein Herr Brent is definitely one of the band's best album openers. Fire Frei is definitely one of their band's biggest anthems for sure, and probably a top 5 Rammstein song for me. That song for me just never gets old. Lynx is also really good. You move towards the deeper cuts, and I really like Zwitter and Ryan Ross. Forgive me again if I butchered the pronunciation, but yeah, definitely a really great album from Rammstein, and definitely, again, my favorite. Moving back to new metal, we got Sevendust with Animosity, which for many people is their favorite from Sevendust, or at least one of their favorites. This is one of my favorites. This is actually probably my third favorite Sevendust album, and then Self-Titled would be my second favorite, and then I would have Home right at the top. But yeah, Animosity, definitely one of the band's best. I'm sure many fans would agree with me on that. You have some of the band's biggest songs on here, like Praise and Angel Sun, but I think the album has some really good deep cuts or B-sides. Dead Set is probably one of my favorites on the album. That song that's going to be one of my favorites on the album, actually. For the longest time, not a song that I paid attention to as much as some of the other songs, but over the years or over time, it's a song that's grown to be one of my personal favorites on the album. I also really like Crucified. Xmas Day is also really good, going to the more melodic side. Follow is also great, which, if I remember correctly, has Aaron Lewis from Stained on it. But yeah, definitely a really great album. Moving to something a bit heavier with Iowa by Slipknot. Arguably maybe their heaviest album and easily one of the band's best. For some people, this is Slipknot's best. The self-titled debut is actually my favorite, but this album is not too far behind. This album and Volume 3 kind of fight for being my second favorite Slipknot album. I really do think Volume 3 is that good, but yeah, Iowa, definitely really good stuff. I mean, people equal shit. My Plague. Heretic Anthem definitely goes hard every time. Left Behind is one of the band's best singles in my opinion. You move towards the more lesser known songs, I really like I Am Hated. And then you also have The Shape, which I think is one of the band's best deep cuts. Disaster Piece is also really good. I also do enjoy Everything Ends. That song is definitely a banger. But yeah, can't go wrong with Iowa by Slipknot. Really great stuff. But moving on to a band that I saw earlier this year, and that is Static X with their album Machine. Absolutely love this album, and for those, I guess, fans that only listen to Wisconsin Death Trip, really need to give this album a listen if they haven't heard it. Same with Start a War, which is their fourth album. Definitely another really great album from them, but Machine is probably my second favorite Static X album. Of course, Wisconsin Death Trip is at the top for me, but this album is not too far behind. They go a little bit heavier on this one. This is probably one of their heaviest albums. But of course, you also still have the industrial side of their sound within the music on this album. I mean, Get to the Gone is definitely a banger. Absolutely love that song. Black and White to me is one of the band's best singles. I really like that song a lot. You also have Cold, which is maybe the biggest song on here. But move towards some of the lesser known songs. Structural Defect and Permanence are some of my other favorites on the album. But all around, definitely one of the band's best in my opinion. And if you haven't heard it, definitely check it out. And of course, rest in peace, Wayne Static. And now we're moving to another one of my favorite albums of all time with Toxicity by System of a Down. This is an album that I pretty much grew up with. Discovered these guys, I want to say around 4th or 5th grade, somewhere around there. But yeah, I discovered them through playing Rock Band 2, hearing Chop Suey from that game, and checking out this album, and then of course the rest is history. But this is an album that you can definitely listen to from front to back with no issues. I mean, all around, definitely a really great album, and probably my favorite from the band too. I mean, of course you have some of their biggest hits on here, like Chop Suey, of course, and Aerials, and the title track Toxicity. But I mean, again, can't go wrong with anything on here. I mean, Prison Song is also great. I absolutely love that one. Shimmy is also really good. A bit on the more shorter side, but kind of a fun track. Rhythmically, I like what they're doing in that song. X is another shorter track, which sees the band go into the more heavier side. I really like that song too. But yeah, Toxicity, definitely a really great album. Definitely one of the best albums of 2001 in my opinion, easily. And now for the final album for this video, we got Lateralis by Tool. For the longest time, this was actually my favorite Tool album, but nowadays, honestly, those first 3 albums kind of fight for being my favorite Tool album. Undertow, Anima, and Lateralis. I mean, and that's not something I can say for many bands where 3 albums are fighting to be my #1 favorites. That's definitely not something you come across very, very often, but Tool managed to do that for me, so good on them. But some of my favorites on here, The Grudge, of course, Schism, Parabola, Ticks and Leeches is maybe a top 10 Tool song for me. I really like that song, maybe one of the heaviest songs on here. Reflection's also great. I do like The Patient. That's a song that's going to be one of my favorites on the album. But yeah, definitely one of the band's best in my opinion, and yeah, strong way to enter the 2000s. But yeah, that is my list of my top 10 favorite rock/metal albums of 2001. Let me know your thoughts on my list. Do you agree or disagree with some of these albums being some of the best of 2001? Let me know, of course, your top 10 favorite rock/metal albums of 2001 in the comment section below, and all the good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and a like, subscribe. Have a nice day, and take care.